Hi, I'm Jamie.
I'm Jen.
Welcome to our podcast, All Things Unbroken.
Life breaks us in ways we never expect, but God rebuilds us in ways we could never imagine.
So come hang with us as we talk about relationships, motherhood, wellness, grief, recovery,
And the slow, beautiful process of becoming unbroken.
Hi, cousin.
Hello, baby cousin. Good morning.
Good morning.
Cheers.
Cheers. What do you have
Actually, good.
today?
This is my Rise
Mm.
coffee.
Yeah, same.
You have
Actually.
Rise?
Yeah. We're so cool. Okay.
We love it. I
Delicious,
love
and
the
I love it.
mushroom coffee.
Yes.
Can you tell difference? We can talk about that for a second if you want. I can tell difference.
Yeah, I like it. It doesn't make me
Okay.
as jittery. I feel like it's better on the gut, which
Mhm.
gut health is kind of my thing. So anyway, yeah, I like it.
Okay. How are you? How was your weekend? Haven't talked to you in a couple of days.
It was really good. So we went on, am I blanking out on Friday night? Saturday morning, we had Burger Day in
Oh,
El
yeah.
Reno, which is like my hometown thing. So we
Yes.
went because um Shane does the farrier work for the Cavalry Association. So he went out to stand at their booth with them. And so we popped in for a little bit. And then we had a Palm get to know you luncheon. And then right after that, one of my great nieces' first birthday. So Saturday was pretty busy,
Hey,
but it was good. It was good stuff.
fun.
Yeah. What
I
about
remember
you?
Burger Day because my mom lived in El Reno and I used to go to that sometimes. So tell us what that is because it's a small El Reno,
Oh my
Oklahoma.
goodness. It's such a funny thing.
Yeah, they do a big burger, right? Like they cook a
Yeah. It's
okay.
kind of known, I think, from, I don't know, the Dust Bowl days or the Depression era, people would use fried onions to like make their hamburger patties bigger, like make their beef last longer. So fried onions are kind of like a big thing over there. There's several places you can go to get a fried onion burger. Um, and anyway, so this was the 38th annual. They do it the first Saturday in May every year, and they cook a large burger in the middle of the road. And so you get to watch them like cook it, put it together. Like it's probably bigger than this room.
It's huge. I
Not that you
remember.
can
It's like
see
a
my room, but
festival. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like a
And then there's like a
festival.
car show. There's booths. There's things for kids. There's a petting zoo. Like it's yeah. It's all in the like
Maybe
downtown streets, and it's right off of Route 66. So it's kind of nostalgic, I guess.
I need to bring my daughter there one year. I couldn't do it this
Yeah.
year, but maybe we can plan that next year because she would
Yeah.
love that.
It's getting different. Like when I was a kid, you would go to Burger Day and you knew everybody. And now I see maybe like one or two people I know, maybe. I don't know anybody else there. So it's
Okay.
grown and changed, which is great. So okay.
What a great weekend. It was a good weekend.
Mhm.
Me. So like, oh, wait. So I think I've talked a lot about this girl group that we have, and we're all getting older. Well, one of my very, very close friends, she's like my sister. She got engaged this last year, and she came to the Dallas area, but she came and stayed, and we went wedding dress shopping.
Aw.
And then one of my other friends who lives in Fort Worth, we're also very close. So we've all known each other 25 plus years. She met us. And after that, we kind of had a little girls' afternoon and came home. And then we ended up getting crawfish. And my husband, he hasn't really boiled them in a while. He used to actually work in a kitchen, but back in the day, over the years we lived out here, like we used to have boils where you'd have like 50 to 80 people come out. We haven't done it in a couple of years. But we got a bag of crawfish from HEB, and he did a little boil for us on Saturday,
Aw.
and it was fun. And I will tell you, my heart is full. So this little group, especially, there's some of us that are like super close. That like when you're together, it's just like kind of like their family, right? Like if I be with you, like you just are together, and you don't have to act like anything, and it's just. And for this, I mean, it's her first time she's married. She's
Did
such
you
a
tell
good
her
soul.
run away? No, I'm just kidding.
No, well, and I mean,
Don't
it's
do
definitely
it. No.
different getting married your first time, in your 40s. She'll be 41
Yeah,
and
that's
no
true.
kids. It's kind of fun because it's like she has
It's the
all of
grown-up
us who have
version.
done it. And we're also like, we don't, she's like, I don't really think I'm gonna have a wedding party. I'm like, don't have a wedding party. It's cost fun. Do
Yeah.
what you want to do. But it's also like sitting down and going over what she needed. And I don't like doing that kind of stuff. But it was so fun to do that this weekend. And like she was telling me stuff. It's like I'm actually enjoying it 20 years ago. But it's also now we're old enough that now compared to like 15, 20 years ago, it's gonna be a little bit different, thing. Like
Yeah.
we were kind of, you're in your 20s, like you're just like trying to get by. And now we're like, oh, we can actually do these things. So I'm very excited for
Yeah.
her. She's actually the one that was with me. I was living with her when my dad died. We actually talked about that this week. And it's so funny because a couple of my friends do listen. She hasn't yet, but my other friend that was with us does. And she's listened to our podcast. And she's like, I was wondering if you were going to say this. They also give me a very different view of what I maybe tell you. And I'm like, oh, I don't remember that. So it's kind of interesting. It was interesting to talk to them. Anyway, my heart's full.
Oh, that is interesting. Maybe you should talk to them before we go on.
No, she's like, I'm going to start listening. She said, I'm going to listen and you need to have me on and I'll tell them that.
Yeah. Oh, that would be so fun.
But it's funny too, because like, we don't see each other like this. She hadn't been out here in a couple of years. Like she came when there was nothing here in a camper with me, pregnant type of thing. But she hadn't been out in a couple of years. So it's not like we see each other. So anyways, it was a good weekend. And my husband and my daughter thinks that like they're her best friends. So
yeah, well, they are.
Yeah, they're all of our best friends. Anyway,
right?
It was a great weekend. It was a little impromptu weekend, but I'm glad we had it and we're ready for, we have a few weeks until summer. Both of us are going to be doing the thing. So
yeah,
that was it.
I know your summer's already booked. It sounds like.
I know.
Still no room for me. I'm just kidding.
I'm seeing you. I'm seeing you in like 3 days, by the way. We'll be together.
I know. I think by the time this one comes out, that will have already happened. But yes, I'm excited. Okay. Are you ready? Okay. So last time we were talking about your long-term relationship where you guys started out in Ohio, I think, or you moved to Ohio, then you moved to Florida. You were in this relationship. You talked about the dynamics of that. And then he was the one that brought you the news that your mom had passed away. And I think that's where we ended.
Okay, perfect. I'll say perfect. And I will say it's kind of interesting the way that this all goes because this month is also Mental Health Awareness Month. And as we've spoken about multiple times, the way my mom died is she struggled with depression and then she died by suicide. So yes, we can kind of maybe pick up there and have that in mind as we speak and kind of go through that as well and how important mental health is, obviously, and what that looks like for different people and families. So yeah, I was living in South Florida and I will pause and say, because I think before in the last one, we spoke about how he was kind of like my best friend and we were like living this life in our 20s. And, I did in my head think that I would marry him one day. Like we had this plan, we were in love, we were happy. Y'all were like, my family liked him, my friends all enjoyed him. And he had actually, I don't know when the date is, but my mom knew when around the time he was going to ask me to marry him. So that had all happened when I got the call. So, he was home that weekend and we had another couple that was really good friends with us in our apartment complex. Him and the husband, they work together in the government and they fly a lot. So actually this whole story is kind of crazy that the way it happened. She was pregnant. And so we, we're kind of like a little family unit because none of us have family there and we're all, there together.
Yeah.
And the baby came early and I actually took her to the hospital. And the same night that she was in the hospital after she had the baby is the same night that I found out about mom. So there's a whole story there. And I will also pause and say, because when my mom did this, we had not been speaking for like a couple weeks because we had gotten like an argument. And looking back, like my mom and I talked basically every single day since like I can remember, like on the phone. We had gotten a little tiff, an argument, and like I had not spoken to her in about a week or two because I was annoyed with her, and I had a lot of guilt with a lot of that for a long time. And I did go to some therapy like years later and kind of got through that. So I don't know, we'll come up with that, but that is there as well because it's really hard. And with that, I'm going to stop and put a plug in it. And if anyone's listening and anyone's in any kind of like discord with a parent or anyone they love, forgiveness is a real thing and you never know what's going to happen. No pressuring anyone, but I'm just going to say that. And that's why I'm so glad you and I have even come back together because you never know what can happen. And now we get to have this relationship. So
yeah.
Anyways.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. I remember even when you were talking about your dad's accident, I think your mom had said or told my mom she was like kind of upset that he went on a ride. And so it just always reminds me, like, even if I'm frustrated, try to be like, I love you, before we go out the door. Because like you said, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Seriously. And I do remember, we can talk about that day. Like I do remember with my dad's accident, being home from church that day and all like hanging out. My mom was like, I really want to go on the ride. You know, Jennifer got to go yesterday because the day before his accident on the ride. Like, and I wanted to go. And I remember her being like just annoyed with him, like little, you know, they weren't really
not like
mad.
a big thing, but just I
Right.
remember
And
her
then,
saying that as sort of a, should I say regret? Like sort of like a,
yeah,
I
I
was
mean, you
frustrated with
regret that.
him. Yeah.
You regret
So
that. And that's, yes. And I think, and I think that it's important, especially as a believer, to have forgiveness for people and yourself. But I think that you go along your life and you just think, oh, I'm going to talk to them tomorrow, or I'm mad at my parent or my brother or my husband or whoever, and you're going to talk to them again. And even with my mom, because you know, we all know that she had her first suicide attempt, but it was like, you know, 7 years before, and then I had done all these things, and then her and I talked. I was just mad at her. I mean, I was 29 years old, and I thought I was the mom, and she, you know, I was joking, but like I wasn't the mom. But I, you know, the way our attitude, our relationship was, it was something so petty too. Like it was a comment that she had made, and I just decided to be mad about it. And then anyway, so on the way, what the reason I'm painting that picture is I remember taking my friend to the hospital, and I was so excited this baby was coming. And I took her, and she had a little dog, and so went to take her dog, and I remember calling my mom and it going to her voicemail. And I left her this message, you know, my friend is having the baby, it's coming early, like her husband's flying back, like my boyfriend at the time, like we're gonna go be with, you know, her. And like this whole thing was a whole exciting thing. The whole time I didn't know, like my mom was already gone. So that just paints that picture, right?
And you were trying to call her with big news. So you were still like, even though you're frustrated, it's like you still had that relationship.
Of course.
She's like still the person you wanted to call.
She's still my person I'm going to call. Like imagine, like I'm sure you got annoyed with your mom, didn't talk to her for a couple of days, and then like your kid gets hurt and you're going to call her, right? Or, you know, whatever. I'm just
right. Yeah. I see. Yeah, for sure.
So anyways, that was probably on the 4th, because I found out on February 5th. That's a date. I remember dates. Like that's what you do when you go through stuff. I remember all the dates. But anyway, she ended up having an emergency C-section. Her husband didn't make it to be there. And I remember that he, whenever my phone was with my friend and she was recovering from the C-section, and the boys were actually upstairs, like getting the baby settled, and you know, had to take you up there, whatever. Yeah. And I did something. I came back and I walked in, my friend's like, hey, you got to call your brother. Like we're like panicking. And the nurse was like, take your phone, like her blood pressure's up. And she also knew about my mom's depression and like that type of stuff. So she was worried about my mom. She's like, something's happening. I'm like, hey, it's okay. So I go out. I'm like, calm down. I go out and I call my brother, and immediately he says, you know, where's your boyfriend? I'm not saying names, or where's your boyfriend at? Like, where's he at? And I was like, what's happening? He's like, you need to give the phone. So I'm in the hospital. And at that moment, I knew something happened. And I go upstairs, I give him the phone, and I go, she did it. And I just,
you said that to him.
I said that to him. And then of course his husband's like, oh my gosh, like, and this little baby's there. And he takes the phone, and I make a beeline to the elevator, and I hear him break down crying. And and he immediately comes and holds the elevator. He's in there. And at this moment, I'm like, don't touch me. Don't talk to me. Like you become like this like shell. I mean, you just become this shell of like, I didn't even know anything particular, but it definitely was that. And he just held me, and I was like, I got a call. And it's actually funny because the 2 people that were here this weekend are the first people that I called.
Oh, wow.
And we went out in the parking lot, and he just was there, and I just paced and started calling. And what had happened is she, you know, for all these years, someone talks about when they have an attempt, or they talk about it because she had other times where she like maybe took too many pills, or she talked about wanting not to be here. But then when something like that happens, I truly believe if someone does that, like you don't know. So I truly believe if someone is literally going to do that, they don't, like, it was a shock, but also at the same time, it kind of wasn't. So it's a very weird, like in between, because she struggled with depression for so long. And what she did was, we can talk, you can talk with me, is she died by carbon monoxide. And your parents are the ones that found her. By the time I got the call, she'd been gone for a day. You know, they called me the day, but she'd already been gone. And when that happened, I hate to say it, you know, everything changed again. You know, like mentally, I thought I was okay, you know, and I had the support system. My boyfriend was amazing at the time, and he was like, what do we do? What do we need? And we weren't married, by the way. There was no secret like life. We weren't married. So he had to take off work to come. He obviously we flew home with y'all, and we
Yeah.
can kind of go through this process of what that looked like. My nieces were both young; they were both in grade school. I think my youngest niece, which is about to graduate college now, I mean, she was like, I think,
Mm.
what, 8, maybe. Yeah, she was like 8 or 9. Yeah, because she's
2013.
22. Yeah,
So
she
13
was like
years ago.
8, and then her older sister, was a preteen, and
Yeah.
and it was just, I mean, it was devastating. And we can kind of pause and talk about the family dynamic. And my brain automatically, like, I think when you get to a point, when I got to the point, like all of a sudden, I literally remember like I'm an orphan again. Like,
Mm.
like it's a very lonely, it's a very interesting thing to lose at any age. I think your parents to be gone, whether you're little or young or you're 70,
Yeah.
no matter what. But at that age where I really felt like I was alone. And I had friends and I had family and it's like your parents are both gone. I'm not even 30. All the things were happening in my
Yeah.
head.
Those people are like your anchor points in your whole life. So I get what you're saying completely. Oh,
So
do you want
that
to tell
happened.
more about that, about the
Yeah.
dynamics of that on top of being adopted, or do you want to talk about the dynamic of celebrating life and then like mourning death at the very same time?
Yes, to that.
I don't
I
want
think
to
we can.
pressure you. Just
No, you asked me, like, I don't, like, that was kind of like that's what happened. And I know this one may actually go into a couple episodes, just because I think the years following my mom's death to the next thing that happened, the next trauma thing that happened a year later, all kind of goes together with like the decisions that I made. Um, I immediately, I get in this thing when trauma happens, when things happen, at least for my life, I get in this like, okay, let's take care of this. Like, what are we going to do?
yeah.
Like, your mom was the executor of the state, a state. She was the
Yeah,
executor
I
of the
think
state.
your mom had written that somewhere, so she had to do
Absolutely.
it
And
legally
at
or
the
something.
time, I will tell you, here's the thing, grief is we can go into this. Let's go into this with grief.
Okay.
What I've learned is there are no like pockets of people that like you just understand. You had me who was, 29, my brother's early 30s. He has 2 young kids. He has 2 kids. Our family was super close. Your mom was the closest thing to all of us, and she held it together. Her and my brother probably got the most of like my mom's depression and going through that, I would say, at the time, because they were closest to
Yeah.
her, right?
I know my mom, even
And
long
Nanny.
before that, when they were younger, they were friends. Like they were sisters-in-law who were friends and spent time together and enjoyed hanging out together. And so when she moved to town, I know that my mom wanted to spend time with her to befriend her anyway, but also I think wanted to like check in on her, take care of her, be there for her, and things like that. So I think they did get closer when she moved to town, probably.
And we can talk a little about depression now. I mean, with what that is, it's draining. Mental health.
Yeah.
Let's pause here, because let's just be real. Like when you anyone that knows someone that has a mental health, I don't want to say, I don't like the word issues, but has mental health struggles with mental health. Yes, struggles with mental health in any direction. And I've even done it when when I go into depression after losing the babies. Like, anyone, and you've been with it. It is draining to the friends and family. And it's not, no one that goes through this should feel guilty about not wanting to be with someone, because it's hard to be around someone who's depressed. And it's like, well, you have this family. Like, what are you depressed for when you don't understand it? So there's no like making anyone feel guilty. I felt guilty for a long time. We all kind of went through our own guilty things, and so I watched her lose friends, from Oklahoma. I also know friends of hers that were super close, that stay close to where she'd go back and forth. But I also know that's very hard. It is very hard to have anyone in your life that you're close to struggle with mental health. And especially back then, like you said, it was 13 years ago. It was maybe better, but we weren't understanding it. I mean, even her therapist or her psychiatrist was like, at one point, like they tried every single thing, from medication to experimental things to electric shock therapy to all the things to and it's like, you're not getting better. Like, we don't know what else to do for you, which that's a whole nother discussion we can talk about.
We should.
And just losing that hope. What would you do? Like, what would I can only imagine. I can only imagine, like, on my worst day, which recently, obviously, we talked about having to want to get up and continue on. And she felt like a burden.
Yeah.
I have her journals, which I've thought about like publishing before, because some of this stuff, and lately I've done this before, but recently I've also been going through, she had the Bible, and I've been doing like some of our like little like devotionals in there, and I'll open, I get, and there's like her writing in there. And recently I felt so close to her because there was one I sent you the other day, one I actually posted for May Day.
Yeah.
But it's like, you are the light. And like she has her writing. So I know she was a Christian. I know she was trying, and unfortunately she ended her life, but also it sparked other things, including like, mental health awareness race, or us even probably doing this, because I
Yeah.
don't love sharing her story, but it makes me like my heart.
Like
I
you're
don't know what the word
honoring
is.
her.
Yes. And also just to help other people understand, like it is a struggle. It is a real thing. She did not choose. She tried and she fought. You said this the other day, like she was so strong. Like she fought so hard to live.
Yeah.
And she fought so hard to hear God and for him to heal her. And it didn't happen. And so that can go along with some of our, like, why give someone hope and take it away? Why give someone who literally wrote verses in a Bible and prayed and still saw the things and still died? Like, and that's what we're here for, is to be like, hey, there's still hope. Like we can get through this. Sorry, that really went on a rampage or different. Okay.
No,
So
I think it's just as it should be. Whatever's on your heart.
So all that happened. And I would say that would be another beginning of a spiral for me. And it was kind of like we came home, let's get our house together. Your mom was doing her thing. We're talking about the car. We're talking about finances. My brother and I at the time, we didn't understand. Like we would have split everything. We would have never made it like a thing, but looking back, I understand why she did what she did. We sold our house
I just
pretty
have to say,
quick.
I don't know anything about what.
No, you're good. No, good. No, nothing bad. It was nothing bad with that at all. We wanted to get everything done fast. And your mom was trying to like make smarter decisions than us, to be like, okay, calm down. But I'm that person, like, we want to sell everything, get everything. Like you actually say stuff
You
to me because
wanted
I
to
didn't
run
want
from
anything. Yeah, but no, we wanted to like close it. I mean, that's what you do, right?
Well, I
That's
was going to
what's
ask
easier.
you, even in general, when anybody passes, I feel like dealing with like legal things, money, estate, like that's the last thing anybody wants to think about, because your mind essentially isn't even in like decision making mode. Like you're grieving. So do
You
you
don't
want to
even know
talk a
you're
little bit
grieving
about
anyways. It's
that?
just like, yeah.
Like, were you like,
What
no?
was your
Or
question to me? Sure.
just the dynamics of like losing someone and then having to deal with all these logistical things, when really like I feel like there should be space there for people to like, let's just grieve and mourn. But you do have to, I mean, it's America, like we have all these legal things and accounts and things that we have to deal with. So
Right. So in some cultures, they actually have, you have the grieving, you have bereavement, you have all the things. In some cultures, they actually take like a month. There's like months of time where you just literally do nothing, right? In other countries and cultures. I mean, I've read about that.
I feel like,
but you're right.
I feel like that makes sense.
We're very like, okay, your accounts due, this is due. And I learned that, we lost my dad because literally like the next week we were over there paying his bill for his radiation treatments. We were closing out accounts and paying things off. As soon as we got like, the check, we're paying this, or we're opening mom this, and we're helping her pay off things. And like immediately, but also I will tell you, it's also a distraction. It's easier to do that than also just like think about it. So I don't know. I do not think after my mom's thing, especially me living in Florida, that I, it was just like a business, like I'm like, let's go get it done. I have a job, like da da da. The one thing I will say too, for me looking back, I started blaming kind of quickly, like people not being there, including the guy that I was dating, because after a few days, we weren't married. He had to go back to work. And I remember being really frustrated, not by he had to be like, again. So then I kind of started having some resentment things because it's just easier to have resentment towards other things than like losing someone. I'm just going to be real. That's what happens. You may not, again, you don't know what's happening. You're grieving. You just lost, I just lost my last parent by suicide. I thought I knew the things, which I did not. I was a little girl. And I remember actually when we flew home together to go from Florida, I looked at him on the plane and I remember saying, you cannot ask me to marry you this year. Do not do it. So that also, the control, the expectation, also with the grieving, that also was me self-sabotaging a little bit, because also at the same time saying that in my head, I'm like, oh, he probably will, like not knowing what I wanted and being with all the baggage, and then a year later, I'm like, well, he never asked me to marry him. Well, like you told him not to, literally told him not to. Well, that was part of the reason, like later on, that we kind of like crumbled soon. Because I'm like, well, you don't love me, all the things. But again, 29-year-old Jen got out of a toxic, marriage into this marriage, moved away. Like I'm doing the things. And then he just kind of got caught in the crossfire of it. Like, what are you supposed to do with that information? Like, what would you do if your husband or someone told you that? You'd be like, okay, like you'd respect. what they asked.
Right.
Right? I don't know. It was very
That's a
confusing.
lot
I
to
was a very
navigate.
confusing person then. Okay.
Yeah.
So that was kind of that life. So he had to go back and we got our house sold. Um, our nanny was still here. We had the funeral, and I went back to Florida pretty quick. And then when I got back to Florida, um, it was it was hard. It was hard. I had such a good work family. I love that job. And I joke around like, oh, I was gonna retire from there. And my husband's like, well, you did. I'm like, you're right, I did. It was just a
Just a
really,
little early.
it was a really cool culture. When they hired us on at this particular job, they were bringing us in to this cribbing school to like change the culture with the students. And I actually started out in student services, and I loved that job. I mean, I was working so hard. I met one of my sisters there, and they were amazing. When I came back to work, they like literally just like let me do what I need to do. Back then it wasn't remote. They actually let me go home at one point and work remote for like a month. Like it was
Mm.
a great. They were my work family, and I actually was at that company over a decade. Until recently. But I was very looking back again. We say God places people in our lives and things. He does protect us, even though these bad things are happening and we have losses. And like, I really look back and I will always be grateful for my Florida family and friends and my friends
Yeah.
back home too, because they were all just, big group, and you all too. Because our family was super close. I don't think any of us knew how to communicate with each other really about this kind of stuff. And we can even talk about that. I think we said it on the mental health thing last year when we first started talking about like the steps we would have taken now, what we know now about like checking in and being
Yeah.
like, but we were all kind of like you said, we were like, but get back to work. Like, let's do this. You're selling this. Why are you doing this? It was very just like
We
business,
were very
right?
young. I was just doing my own. Like my daughter was only not even a year old. Like I
She was
was
a
just
baby.
still, I was trying to get
You were
into my new
surviving.
life and survive and in my own world. So
Yeah.
not in a way that I didn't care, but it was just like,
Well, we just didn't know. And I think even like with, your parents and nanny, it's just, we didn't know how to like, we just didn't know how to communicate as well. And bless your mom's heart, she tried so hard. And also I was just in my world wanting to like move on from it.
yeah.
So anyway, we got back to Florida, and it wasn't good. I was not in a good headspace, but I thought I was. Um and I went back to work. So my mom died in February, and then by the fall of the next year, so she died in February, within 6 months of the next year is when I like needed a break. And I decided like I did not want to be with my boyfriend anymore.
Mm.
It was very like that resentment, that pointing that I'm okay, but it's like I didn't know where to go. I did try to start counseling, and there was not, it was not good. It was not a good thing. I actually went to one counselor. Well, one like cried with me a lot, which was interesting, which wasn't it was just interesting. Like she was very empathetic,
Mm.
but and then another one actually asked me at one point, with her beliefs that she was, and I remember this. She said, well, what do you feel about like people thinking that, your mom could be in hell, basically?
Oh, that's
I don't know if she said that word, but that's what she was referring to. Because in some cultures, in some beliefs, in some religions, if someone dies by suicide, that's what happens. And so that's a whole, we can
but I
just,
feel
that's
like
a whole thing.
I feel like a therapist would talk about that. Like if you brought it up, I don't
Mm-mm.
see
I did
how
not
it
bring,
would be
and yeah.
helpful for them to bring that up. But
So that also did a couple things. But then, and now
yeah.
on the back end of it, I did have a group, and this is when I started getting into like church, and I started listening to like Elevation Church. And back in the day, they had,
Mm.
he wrote the book, Stephen Furtick wrote the book, like I think it was called Stop the Chatter, Chatterbox. And I remember I got really into like working out and running and like listening to that podcast then. So when I
Mm.
look back at those times when I would like not know what to do, like when I would listen to those messages, that really helped me. I had a very hard time. I remember at one point we were moving out of our apartment into the townhome, a new townhome. And I remember packing boxes. And I mean, you have to remember, like, I literally, like, I talked to my mom, besides that week or two that I didn't, I talked to her every single day. Right. So that was very hard for me. I will pause. I want to go back to the night that she passed away, because I think this is a very, very sweet moment. Right after I found out and that she had passed, I went back upstairs in the hospital, and I got to hold this newborn baby. And there's actually a picture that I think the husband or someone took of me. And sometimes I post it because it just reminds me, like the same night that I found out that my mom had died,
Mm-hmm.
I held this little life, and she was beautiful. And I remember in that moment feeling like very peaceful and looking at this baby and just like knowing it was going to be okay, and knowing that with death there is life, and with sorrow there's hope. And I don't know, and it's always like I always say, there's hope and sorrow. That's kind of something that I've said a lot over the years. Like there can be hope and sorrow. You can. And I remember her. She's 13 now, and the families and I've kind of like split apart, but we'll text each other. And she's beautiful, but she really helped me even like months after that, because I would go and help, the mom. And like she was a new mom. I had no idea then, like what I know now. Sorry, all my friends that had babies before me, but I would go and help babysit her. I'd help her, and like it really just like to be able to hold on to that, like this beautiful child in the midst of something like me hurting so bad and my mom being gone, just really helped me in that moment. So I wanted to pause and go back to that as well.
Awesome.
So we can kind of really
that.
pause there, and I can kind of talk about from Florida to the next thing that happened, the next one, but we can kind of wrap it up. And I don't know if I explained any of that well, or
No, I think you did. And do you want to kind of, as far as like just telling us what happened, do you want to stay on telling about the relationship and then when it ended and then what happened next?
I think so. I don't think we have enough time, because again, it kind of goes into like the accident and stuff that we'll talk about, because it's all happened within like a year. So we had her passing away. We had me, I flew back. We had me telling this person like, hey, don't ask me to marry you, even though like later I'm going to really want you to ask me, but I don't really want you to. That was confusing. And then in my head, I literally convinced myself that this person didn't care about me. Because again, grief is so tricky. And I'm actually in a class right now for grief coaching and learning. I actually read a ton of books about grief over the years, and I've been in my own therapy, and I did the life coaching, but it is very tricky. It is not a perfect line. You have the 5 stages of grief. That 5 stages of grief was meant for someone who was diagnosed with terminal illness. Somehow over culture, it got turned into grieving when you lose someone. It is very different. It's very similar as far as like the stages, but what happens is it just keeps cycling throughout your life. It doesn't stop. You don't get to the final stage of acceptance. Okay, you're going to go back, and it goes back 20 years. It could be 30 years later, and you can have a memory. I mean, even this weekend, my friend that was there when I found out the news asked me, she was like, I just remember you walking back into our apartment and yelling for me. And she was on the phone with someone who's like, they were at a church meeting, like, are you with Jen? And she's like, oh yeah, she's here. We're talking about, whatever. And then all of a sudden she heard me. She's like, do you remember going and like throwing up? I'm like, no. And I didn't cry. She's like, you didn't cry. You just were like, okay, get my clothes together. I got to go find my mom. And like her remembering, and like that moment this weekend, we had a moment where we're like thinking about like, oh man, but that was 20 years ago almost. And we had like an emotional moment 20 years later together. What I'm saying is it doesn't just stop. It circles. So that whole like, the stages is literally for someone with, I mean, it makes sense now that I know that.
Or if like you're grieving some sort of loss in your own life, like you have to come to an acceptance with it of something that is pertaining to you, not as far as grieving, losing somebody else.
A human, like another.
That makes sense.
Someone you love, someone who's like your world. So
that makes sense.
So that's kind of the beginning, I would say, when we got back to Florida. And I remember there were times, I was very hard to probably live with, and I was emotional, and I picked fights, and then also you add on not getting help from my last relationship, right? You add, it's a big jumble of, here you go. And bless his heart.
It's like compounded.
Yeah.
Bless his heart. Bless
and
your
then
heart.
And then,
bless both of you.
Plus everyone. No, but then also, then now you lose his parent. I mean, literally, I could sit here and explain it to you. It was not pretty. It wasn't pretty, you know? And then eventually I do remember that I went to my best friend's, she had a bachelorette party, and I went to this, and at this time, and I thought I was okay, and I was acting like I was okay, but like I really was not okay. And I think he knew it, but he didn't really know what to do with it, because he's like, I don't know what to do. Like, I can't ask her to marry me. I'm trying to be here for her. I'm also gone 3 days a week. It was there's really nothing he could have done at that time. I was literally slowly crumbling, and people were just trying to be there and not know. And then you guys were here, right?
Yeah.
I remember it was in the fall, after her party, I came back, and something in me, I was just like, I'm not happy in this relationship. I don't know. I just need a break. And that's when I got the okay to move back to Oklahoma for a little bit and be with my family there, because I thought they needed me, which in reality, I really needed all of y'all. Like, that's what was happening. I didn't think. And I took our dog, and I took my headset, and I got approved to go home. And when I was home is when I remember, since I took my niece to like a soccer game or a practice, I remember being in the car, and I remember calling him, my boyfriend at the time, and breaking up with him.
In the car.
And he was like out of the country at work. And I remember I felt so certain this is what I wanted to do and that this would fix everything. I thought that breaking up with him and having a fresh start and whatever would fix everything. This is probably a good time to because I know we're running on time too, but
Gotcha.
that is literally in my head. And if you know there's a pattern, these things happen, it's like, okay, this is going to make it better. This is going to be my new life. This is my new beginning. Yeah. Well, with this one, I was ending this relationship for that new beginning. There is a pattern that just kind of made me.
Yeah. Trying to run from something or run to something. Or blocking things out and just getting something done. Yeah.
Moving to South Carolina.
Yeah.
Coming home, moving to Ohio.
Yeah.
Moving, breaking up with the long-term relationship with someone that you're in love with, but you just can't see it, or you don't think they love you, whatever. Like it's a pattern. Looking back, I'm like, gosh, man. Oof. Anyway.
Well,
so that's a new beginning.
No shame,
that we'll talk
because
about.
I think, I try to read a lot and learn a lot about like the nervous system and things like that. And it makes sense that like everybody kind of has their pattern, right? Mm-hmm. And we can kind of heal over time and learn, but like everybody kind of has their pattern of how they respond to things when we're not aware. And I just think you're so much more aware now, and you've gone through healing and you have learned so many tools and things like that. It's easy to look back and see like, oh, I see exactly what I did there.
Yeah.
And
to pass on to our children
differently now.
Right? Like that's what we're anyways. Yeah. So that's kind of that. And mental health is kind of interesting. Mental awareness month was obviously my mental health back then. And probably our families and all the things weren't necessarily, I started doing a lot of toxic things like thinking, and that will go into the next thing. Literally, we're going to go into the next event next, and we can kind of talk about that to where I came to good old Texas. But thank you for letting me share that. And in that, I just want to remember, because I don't ever like to end on like a negative. We can, but it's just remembering that in this moment, in these months of me grieving and not knowing myself, looking back to the moment of holding the baby the night that my mom passed or that I found out, there's always little glimpses of hope, even though these stories right now, and they do get better because right now I'm in such a healthy, loving marriage with a beautiful life. They get there, but like those little glimpses, I see like little sparkles. I like little of God's love for me, even in my darker times. And I think that's what gets me through and gets us through, any of us that go through stuff. You have to look for that. Like I said in the last one, you have choices. You're either going to be miserable, because that definitely can be a choice. And I know people that do and don't want to get help and don't want to grow and don't want to talk, or you can choose not. And I fought for that. I think I've been fighting since I was born, maybe. And maybe that's not always a good thing either, but I think I've been fighting since I was born. And also with my husband that I have now, this will be later, I've kind of learned how that I don't have to. And also with getting help and therapy and praying in church, I'm also realizing that it's not my fight. It's God's, and I don't have to do much to be peaceful. So we'll get there.
Yeah. That all by itself will preach, I think.
I love you.
I love you. Thank you again for sharing everything.
Okay. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you guys so much for joining us today. We truly hope this episode has touched your heart.
If someone came to mind while you were listening, please feel free to share this with them.
And if you have any questions or feedback for us, you can reach us at allthingsunbrokenpodcast@gmail.com.
Have an awesome day.